All right, call order. Open the meeting. The pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, justice for all. I'll take attendance. Neil Mascola here. Ali Bronco here. AJ Bordas here. Tommy Kiernan here. Rick Cool here. He's present. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting on October 20th, 2021.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Approved. So where do we want to go now, Ed?
Well, we can't open
Can't open till
public hearing to
6:05.
6:05, so
6:03. Nominations?
we can do nominations, or also we'll just put on the record that Mayor Hess was a short time ago and swore in our 3 new zoning commissioners. So that's done. And if you wanted to do a nomination thing first and then go into the public hearing, you can.
I'd like to nominate Ricky Poole for Chair of the Nogget Zoning Commission.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Accept.
Said all in
Do
favor?
you accept?
I accept. Any opposed?
Congratulations.
All right. I'll entertain a motion for the vice chair.
I'll make a motion. I'd like to nominate Eileen Bronco as Vice Chair, Nogget Zoning Commission.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Neil Mascola for secretary. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved? You accept?
Yes, sir.
Who was the second?
AJ, I think, even though.
AJ.
Congratulations on a new board.
Yeah.
And a new member.
And I still have 604. Do you want me just to give the update on 251 Rubber Avenue?
Yeah.
For a second, okay.
Sure, go ahead.
So Jim Stewart and I did meet with Tim. I forget Tim's last name. One Stop Auto. As you know, we had him at the meeting last month to go with us. We went out there. We've seen what he's done on the hill. We were comparing it to some of the things that was in the plan that we originally approved back in May. We saw some differences from what it was. They gave a few reasons why, but we asked him to now have his surveyor now provide that to us in writing. Like I said, that was roughly about a week ago, so I don't know if Dave Hughes was able to do it quick enough. I told him if he didn't have it on paper for us tonight, there was no really necessary for him to come. And that we'll continue looking at it, but he should have it for our December meeting to let us know exactly what he's doing on there. His goal was to get done, the fencing is up in the back. He's gonna put the screening in there. He's still talking about trying to do something with his paint booth building, but we've discussed that with him, that until he gets the bank to the point where we're agreeable on, that was not part of the deal that we had sold. That's phase 1 is still yet to be completed yet, and we won't go on to phase 2 until that happens. So that's where we're at on that. Yes, son.
How far in phase 1 do you feel he is? Is he moving at a pace that we're finding acceptable?
I believe he's moving at a pace, yes. Part of it was, as you know, he did put in some drainage pipe up top because there were issues. There always have been issues there with water. So we wanted to make sure that gets on the plan. When Jim was there, he said, it's not a bad thing that was done. It might be a good thing because we always have water around that embankment. Part of what I saw on the plan, as I said, the plan called for 40 feet coming out from the property line, being basically flat before the slope of the hill started. Well, that's not what happened. And I said, now you need to go back and tell us exactly what you did, why it was done, You know, and they said it was to get it to 2-1. I said, well, the plan you presented to us in May was supposed to be 2-1. You know, and I think it was done so they don't have to have potentially a retaining wall put in or whatnot. So I've asked before we go anything, and again, I said, we may look now, since you put more stuff on a slope, we might want to see some plantings now in that area, because the 40-foot was the landscape buffer area. And before that was going to be flat, so you really didn't see it. But now that it's going to be at an angle, you might be able to see that, you know, so we might want to see some more plantings on there, especially being a hill, to hold back the embankment. I told them last month, we said we did not want to see wood chips. We don't want to see, I mean, if you want to do stone, a lot of places do stone to hold up an embankment, and that's fine. You can bring that back to us and tell us what you're going to do. But now that the slope has changed and the area has changed, come back with a plan with us to let us know what you want to do, or what we'll see in the future.
Is he looking to expand the footprint of the parking area? That way he potentially push that whole wall back to give him more square footage at down.
It might be a little bit, but it's not going to be much to add more to it. I think it was realistically because of the slope, the way it was, or where it was going to be before, to get the building in that he wanted, that future building, you would have had to put a retaining wall. But I think now the way it looks like, since he's made it more of an angle, you don't need as big of a retaining wall perhaps. So it may not be a bad thing that he's done. My concern is I want to know a little bit how much dirt did he actually excavate off the property? You know, and they'll be able to tell us that because we have what it was before. And the surveyor should be able to give us that. And when I was talking with Jim Stewart about it, Jim did think that it did not hit the amount that would have caused an issue. But again, it still should be addressed, and we should be able to talk about that first, because that was not part of the first one.
Well, it's just a concern is we talked about plantings because of drainage and that whole issue. And it's getting cold. It's going to be to a point where not going to be there, that he's not going to be able to plant.
Right,
till
and
spring.
right, and I did say to him that I think this could be an issue because he wanted to get the potential other building up, and I said, I don't see it happening because that won't be done. I said, I think you're 6 to 8 months off. You know, so again, it's good. The ball's now in their court to come back to us with their plan as to now what is it? And the slope seems to be 2-1 from what Jim said. It looks like it's going to be fine, but we want to know exactly what they did and what is it ending up at now? Because if you look at the plan, and I have it here, it clearly called for flat to this point here, which is where the buffer is, or where the 40-foot area is, and it's actually more up here. So I said, well, first you've got to do is, let's get this plan right now. Let's get what you actually have there. You know, originally it was going to be an 8-foot vinyl stockade fence. Wasn't able to get one. He put a chain link. It still has privacy in it. That's gonna, I think that would be fine. The trees that you put in, let's get an idea of what you put in there. And you know, it's going to be up to you guys to make that decision for what do we want on the bank, and maybe should we put some staggered plantings. So again, make the bank look better, because it's not just about holding it up, it's about making it look good too. It's called a landscape buffer for a reason. So I said we might request a landscape plan of it to see what you're going to do there now that you're making it more of a view.
We've been going over this for so long, I kind of forgot where we started. Were we requiring plantings by a certain date? Definitely plantings across the fence? That's what I.
Well,
I remember.
what we required,
But we didn't put a specific date on it.
right, what we required was what he
Yeah.
put
What
here.
we took out. Right,
This was the plan that we approved. And it shows the, let's see, proposed white pine trees planted at 20 feet on center along the property line perimeter up there.
but we didn't do a timeline of when that was supposed to happen.
Well, what we did say is that, no, we didn't give a timeline as to how soon that had to be done, but nothing could go forward on the other phases until these phases were acceptable.
Right.
And we haven't met that yet.
And I think moving forward, we probably should do a timeline because
Yeah,
the issues we had and.
And
all
it's
the other
just kind
stuff,
of
it's- Yeah. I agree.
going so
Well,
slowly.
We can ask him to give us a timeline on now what you're gonna do. I mean, when we did it in May, who thought, you had the whole summer.
Right,
But
exactly.
what I understand is his contractor got held up on another job and delayed him being able to get started. Because the contractor was there when we were there, and the excavation machine, but. So again, it's just another excuse.
Right.
Does he have trees up top?
They have planted arborvitae's, quite a few of them. I think it's 2 rows of them up top
Oh, okay.
in the 15-foot area. Yes, that was something that I think he even brought that up last month. They had purchased them and he was going to get them in, which he did get in.
Okay.
And then he had asked about putting the wood chips or the other stuff up there, but because it's a bank, we said we didn't want to see that because that could all wash out. That was a quick temporary thing, but that's not what we want.
Were you okay with grass seed, hydroseeding it or something like that?
Well, he could do that. But I don't know if you can do that now this time of year.
You know,
June mats, how, when can you put the June mats or something, those? That's this time of year.
So is there a concern, an erosion concern at this point, expecting that no more plantings can go up, past December?
I didn't get that opinion from Jim Stewart
Okay.
on the slope that's there. I think if it was, it seemed like it was gonna be a steeper slope on this plan, which I think could have been more of a concern.
Okay.
And we did not see that with all the rains that have happened recently, that it was showing that to be an issue right now.
Anything else? All right, so then I'll open the public hearing, the 6:05 hearing. However, it's 6:13, and it's for the proposed special permit application for 1 megawatt solar panel facility for the property located at 0 Bosco Drive, account number 016-9188, applicant Tritech Americas LLC.
You should make about AJ and Tommy about the recording.
Oh, good point. All right, so want to ask AJ and Tom, did you guys listen to the recording for last month?
yes.
All right, thanks. Go ahead.
Thank you. That's helpful for me to know as well. For the record, my name is Chris Gagnon. I'm a professional engineer here in Connecticut with BL Companies, 355 Research Parkway. I'm here representing the applicant, Tritech Americas LLC. Along with me is Paul Michaud from the Michaud Law Group, in case there's any questions legally related. And so piggybacking on that last question that was just asked of the new commissioners, we opened up the hearing last month and I gave a presentation on what we were proposing at that hearing. Right before the hearing and during the hearing, we received some written comments from the public as well as numerous comments that were provided during the public hearing, as is the whole point of having a public hearing. We also received comments from the borough engineer as well. As a result of that, we have prepared and resubmitted responses to Mr. Stewart in a formal letter, and we have also submitted response to the public comments as well in letter format. I don't think I'm going to read this in. But
Yeah, that's this document here, correct?
correct.
Which I did provide to each of you.
So, so that was part of the resubmittal. We also had some plan revisions as a result of Mr. Stewart's comments and as a result of some of the public comments. So we provided those as well. We also provide, I'm just going over what we provide. I'll get into the details in a second. We also provided a landscape rendering as part of the submittal package for what the site is anticipated to look like from the abutting property owners. Along with the resubmittal, we included a draft decommissioning plan as was requested, and then Additionally, as part of the response to the public comments, we provided some industry documentation with respect to the historical safety of these sites and history with potential fire, operational maintenance, et cetera. So there's industry literature that we referenced in our letter and then provided that documentation as part of this letter. So that's why this is a fairly thick document. It's not entirely mine.
Where is that?
It's in the back of that response to
Of
comment.
this one?
Yes.
Okay, so it's in the back of the,
So how does the public get a copy of this?
these are all available online.
So they can download them?
Yeah, they can open it as PDF.
So how do they know where it is online?
They go into our borough website
Okay,
and under land use, each month we put anything that an applicant presents to us is available online.
okay. Is this
also.
already online or?
This
is it-
was online
Yes,
as
okay.
of the 17th, or no,
Okay.
I'm sorry, of the 10th.
Okay.
It was when I received it last Tuesday, I believe.
So actually, if I could let you know, it's on the homepage. If you go to the homepage of the website,
Yeah,
on the left-hand side, it says agendas, minutes, notices. You click on that. Then from there, there's a drop-down menu in the center. You go to zoning commission on the bottom. From there, there's another drop-down subcategory. You're gonna go to applications and permits. Another drop-down subcategory, 2021. From there, you're gonna go into 0 Bosco Drive. And on that, it's gonna be a list of everything that has been submitted.
So when we stamp them in, you'll see there's a stamp date. That is the date that we receive it, and we put it online also at the same time.
The submittal included a digital copy of everything.
So when the applicants turn into us, we
Okay.
request a digital copy. So this was November 9th. We probably put it up either the 9th or the 10th, but I believe it was the same day. We put it up.
And any member of the public is welcome to call our office and we walk them through also. If they can't find it themselves, we'll
perfect.
walk them through as well.
It's in the same area as where you go on to get the agenda for the meeting and stuff. So our agendas are always up there, the minutes are always up there. And then when COVID started and we started doing things online, we started breaking it down by year, by meeting, and by application. So someone could just, because otherwise it would be very confusing to see all the applications. So it was much simpler to put everybody under their own application.
Okay. So also administratively, we have completed the process through your planning department, and they have provided their referral for the project. So we went through that. I think it was the first of this month. So part of that process, their condition of approval, along with their standard conditions, requested that the decommissioning plan, a draft of that, be submitted to your department. So it was part of our plan anyway, but that was the one add-on condition that the planning commission included in their vote, in their decision towards us.
And that was in your packet also.
So, so with that, let me talk a little bit about the response to Mr. Stewart. I'm not going to read the letter, but the important revisions, I believe, related to his comments were specifically to the outfall of the site. And I'll get into the site plan in a second, but I just wanted to hit on this. So his comments were related to where the stormwater is discharging off the site. Based on his comments, we have added to the plan a proposed level spreader so that any runoff that would be discharged from the pond hits this level spreader, and then it will replicate pre-development flows. And the intention of a level spreader is to spread out the flows so that we replicate sheet flow. So we have proposed that on both of these, both of the ponds. So that was, I think, an important addition from Mr. Stewart's review. I believe he has not completed his review of this resubmittal at this time. So I don't have any feedback from him on the resubmission just yet. And then there were some other comments.
Really quick, on the
Yes,
stormwater
sir.
runoff, the size of that, how do you, is that a standard that you use? Because I noticed that the distance appears to be, I don't know, 20, 30 feet. Is that, where does that size dimension come from? So you know that you're going to actually replicate what would happen naturally versus.
So the stormwater management flow is measured in cubic feet per second. So it's a volume of flow that is measured. That's how we calculate it. So you do a pre-development and a post-development analysis of the site, and that's why we need to propose the stormwater basin so we can slow down the runoff to the pre-development rates. So what you do is you calculate the runoff rate over the length. So you have a volume over a length, which allows you to figure out a velocity of the runoff. So then the velocity of the runoff needs to be at the non-erosive rate for the ground cover that you have. So
And then that calculation allows you to know how large of a distribution you need.
yeah. So in practice, you usually stretch it out as big as you can, and then you calculate what you have, and if it's too much, you velocity is a little high, you stretch it out a little further. But you know, you give as much level spreader as you can based on the topography and the width that you're working with.
And this distance gives you at a minimum standard velocity versus.
Correct. So we there are standards in terms of what is an erosive velocity for a given ground cover. So a riprap area has a higher erosive velocity because the riprap can handle it. A vegetated grass area has a certain velocity that you're allowed. So that is what determines you know, what kind of velocity you're gonna end up with. I do think it's important to note on that. And I realized that you weren't here last time, so
I did listen to the full meeting, so.
no, I understand completely, but I think it is a good point about what is required for stormwater management in terms of solar projects. The state requires that we analyze each panel as impervious area. So that is what's driving needing the detention ponds on this site. And then what we also have here, it's not a connected total impervious area like a parking lot. So you don't get the sheet flow building up and then draining off. Each panel drains to the vegetated area underneath it. So so we have some natural you know, slowing down of the runoff as well. But the ponds are sized as if each panel is impervious along with the gravel road, which is what the general permit requires for us. So that's where we get the change in runoff rate based on the meadow and the woods that it is existing to then the proposed strips of impervious area. So in practice, these sites are conservatively designed because of the requirement that the deep requires that we model it as impervious area. So it's having the vegetation underneath each panel really helps, and you don't model each little strip of grass. So it's a conservative design in terms of the overall stormwater.
Did you have to change anything around the actual storm discharge area? Vegetation or anything like that in that general area where you put that strip?
There is proposed grading in that area, so after we grade it, we will need to stabilize it and seed it. But at this time, it's a level spreader with a vegetated area below it.
And then that portion of it's been updated.
Yes, that is part of the resubmittal. Yes.
Can you just explain the spreader?
Okay,
It's just flattening the area or?
so this one, so this is a stone level spreader, so I'm trying to find the detail here. So we can exactly what we said. But the concept is, you can have different types of stormwater discharge. You can have a point source coming out of a hose, coming out of a pipe, something like that. For this, we are proposing that once the pipe discharges, there is riprap at the pipe discharge, and then what you can see is, so the pipe discharges, there's a riprap apron, so that helps with energy dissipation. And then this is a cross section of it. So this is if you're looking down the level spreader. So what it allows water to do is go into this area, spread out across the length of the level spreader. And then in theory, instead of it being just shooting out of a pipe, you have this entire length of the level spreader with the water flowing over it. I'm going to use the term waterfall. It's not violent like a waterfall, but it's gently flowing over it. And then we have proposed a erosion control blanket right at the lip of the level spreader. So that also helps reinforce the earth in that area. So the thought is that since we're releasing it at or below pre-development rates, and we're using a level spreader, the intent of the design is that if and when it, not if and when it rains, it's not going to rain, when it rains, that the neighboring properties will not know any difference in terms of the rain that is, the runoff that is flowing through their property. So we slow down the water in the pond and release it at a rate that is comparable to pre-development rates. And then by the introduction of the level spreader, we're not putting all that in one spot. We're putting it in a wider area to better replicate pre-development flows.
Just to add to that, there, after our meeting in October, we had a meeting several days after with Jim Stewart.
Yes.
Where this was all discussed.
Yes.
Where Jim understood what it was now, because it was one of the questions that he had as to what could be done in regard to that.
Yeah, and we provided a clearer detail as well in this plan set.
Right, and Jim was at the planning meeting. He's not able to be at this meeting here, but and he'll be at hopefully our next meeting. He's going to still do another review yet to be able to state what his opinions were.
And the top of that property is
the hind part of the property, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a turtle's back, so it breaks off in both directions. So that, again, that's why we have both sides, because the intent would be to replicate pre-development flows. We don't want to take all the water and push it to one side or the other.
And this plan, like you had said, still has to go to DEP.
Correct. So due to the area of disturbance, we will be required to get a general permit for discharge from stormwater discharge from construction activities. So it is reviewed and monitored, and during construction, we need to provide inspections either weekly or after rainfall events. So it's a highly regulated construction activity through the deep as well. So that's kind of the high points of the stormwater management and revisions through Mr. Stewart's comments. So the other important, while we're on the plans, I'll segue into public comments. So we have residential properties here on this side. That is the south side of the project. So what we felt was that it made sense to shift the solar panels as northerly as possible for shading purposes and to provide as much buffer from the residential properties on this side of the site. I have the previous submittal in here. So as you can see, the road and fence line and panels were further south in the original submittal. We have since shifted it away as much as possible for a couple reasons. One, we're providing a path for the property owner to utilize the existing road that he has to get around back to his side of his property, and to just shift the entire development as far north as possible for solar purposes and otherwise. And what that allowed us to do is we have provided additional plantings along this side here. There's some low understory and then screening along the fence line that we have provided to increase the buffer in this area. Part of the problem when you're cutting down trees, in theory, we like to keep as many trees as possible. However, as you're cutting into it, sometimes you're just left with like umbrella type trees, so it doesn't really serve the purpose of the screening that you want. So that's why we've provided the understory plantings here, rhododendron and mountain laurel, and then screening along the fence line as well. So in shifting the project northerly, we've been able to help our yield with getting it as north as possible, and to provide a little bit more of a buffer in terms of length from the properties to the development, and it allowed for this pretty extensive planting plan. And that was the intent of this plan, to provide a rendering And it's an architectural rendering, so it's, it's obviously not a photograph, but this provides a idea of the types of plantings that we'll have as the understory, and then the screening plantings behind it, so that the development is screened from the neighbors.
And just out of curiosity, in 10, 15 years' time, some of those trees are gonna be quite tall, the ones that you're planting now, what happens?
The proposed trees, the mature height, will not, they're dwarf varieties. The proposed evergreen screening along the fence line only grows to the 10 to 12 foot height. So the shading shouldn't be an issue. It's not like the beautiful street trees you guys have out front that, grow 50 to 100 feet. We're not proposing those types of trees along the fence line.
You shifted, you didn't add same amount of panels, you just shifted what you had.
Correct. Yes, we did not change the number of panels. That's an excellent point.
How far away are you from the other properties? That you buffer zone now?
It varies, but. So I bring my scale for these things. So this is a 60 scale drawing, so it's a fairly large scale drawing. The buffer to the panels from the property line are 70 feet.
70 feet?
At that spot, the panels here are plus or minus 50 feet, and then up here, they're much further away.
So you wouldn't even be able to see them from the house?
That's the intent, sir.
And then it's a much larger one at the end where they shifted the panels.
Right, yeah, and then down here, we're, 160, 150, 160, half a football field away.
What about on the other side? With the mobile parkings?
On the other side, we put the robust tree planting here for where they are located, and then that the panels are again 70 feet away, and then once you get past the community, they are 40 feet off the property line, and about average of 40 to 50 feet off the property line. But that community ends around right here. So they have buffer from the panels here, and they have this robust evergreen planting along the fence line as well.
So there's gonna be an 8-foot chain link fence around the entire property.
Yes.
There will not be evergreens around the entire property. And then the stone fence, the existing stone fences.
The existing stone walls are not impacted by this.
Right, it's up, that's,
Yes. Yes, we are not proposing to ring the entire fenced-in area with screening planting at this time. That is an accurate statement. We are strategically, it's not the right word. We are placing buffer plantings adjacent to the closest residential properties. So like these houses are much further away. This one is close up here, and then these are fairly close. So we put the plantings where they provide the most.
two areas with major plantings
Yes,
as buffers. And then the rest of the area will be the 8-foot chain link fence.
that is correct.
And will the chain link fence have high voltage hazard signs, caution signs?
There
all
are
over it?
signs at the gates, saying what it is. Their signage, it's not like we have signs every 50 feet around the fence. No. To answer that question. That's not typical. That's not standard. That's not industry standards.
So what is the standard? And I say that because I recently saw a fenced-in array that had signs like every 15 feet.
Oh, okay, well, that's, it's a possibility. That's not proposed at this moment in time, but it's, yeah, but that is, we don't have any problems with that, if that makes sense.
This rendering that you have from 66 Farmstead, is the slope of the land allowing for the an 8-foot fence to not be visible, or is that just not here?
The screening of the plantings along with the slope of the land, in our opinion, would block the fence.
So no, so somebody sitting at this particular fire pit's not going to see any fencing of any kind?
That is what we believe, yes.
So the fence is on the other side of those pines.
Yes.
Can you show where 66 Farmstead is now? As to where it would be?
Oh, so this isn't really representative of roughly 80% of property ownership along that line, because this particular property is right in that triangle worth of growth.
This property here, and then it provides some for this guy. These houses are much further away.
Those two houses are interior lots in that subdivision. That subdivision had the regular, along the road, and then they had some few interior. So those are closer to the back property line or the property line of the proposed solar array.
Whereas the other ones are on the road. So,
And I believe one of the interior lots is not, it's still vacant, it's not built on. Correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's further.
So the one more towards the middle, there's no house on it yet. The two houses that would be the closest to it are off the Farmstead Lane.
So if this third house is built, it will be in close proximity? Is
It
it
depends
rear lot?
upon where the house would be built on the property. Look to see, didn't we have an overlay that we did at one time? And it might show the lot. Remember we did an overlay. This one here, I believe, might show it. So last month, I think, yeah, it might be the same one that you presented there. That our GIS department did.
So this was the old layout. The screening is now here for these guys. And then this lot is way over here. And as you can see, this ends here. So this is the four of us.
Is this also an interior lot?
It looks like there's a little flag that comes out, so that probably is.
Yeah, so I'm just pulling up on my phone. to try to get an idea.
Yeah, so this same drawing here, these two houses exist. This would be considered an interior lot because it's behind the other ones. This one is also an interior lot because the driveway went through it. This is the one that's not built on. This one is on Grand Ridge, I think that's right.
Yeah,
So these properties up there. So this one is not built on.
Oh, it's not. Is that Farmstead too? Is that? on
No,
that
no,
circle?
this driveway goes down
Okay.
to
Grand Ridge Road.
Grand Ridge Road. That's their
So
connection.
they have the possibility of
Okay.
building the house there,
Yes.
so buffering that.
It's a good sized lot though. It's 1.83 acres. It's a larger lot.
Which one specifically is it, 66 Farmstead?
Right.
Okay. Okay.
But right now, they've adjusted to go back here.
Yeah, yeah.
So that other interior lot, the one is only 1.22 acres. The interior, and then 66 is 0.95 acres. So the one that's left is almost double.
Do we have that in this?
This was last month,
Oh, last month, I didn't. read it.
before they changed this plan.
I got you.
Right, so
I don't
we
remember.
had the interior lot, it's not built on. The driveway goes down to Graham Ridge Road. This is Graham Ridge Road. And this was down Graham Ridge Road.
No, you're good.
Two houses.
Got it.
You-
Carl, I got
I have it at home.
No, it's gonna be up here, so This is from previous,
So
this plan is now
Here's the
going up
two
this way.
houses.
They pulled
here's
away
from
from
66 down. Yeah.
70 feet. So
Here's the other
I got
interior.
My house, I got 15 feet, you can't see through the this.
I'm just showing you
And
what
then this is the other
the
one.
overhead, if you wanted to see
side
that.
Of this one, so the house could go over the other house if it needed to, as opposed to these two.
Or if they wanted to, it's up to a homeowner. That's what they wanted.
Yeah, well, once it was built, you see where
Where they want position.
we want to position it.
So again, this was submitted, this one was submitted last month.
Can I just ask you again, I'm sorry. Where that ends up with the second house? Clearly that triangular piece.
You can see the house right
Okay.
there. Just up there.
Thank you.
So, and then, I'd just like to speak in general to, the public comments that we received, both written and the, oral public comments. So, in this response letter, obviously the written comments we already had written. But what we did for the oral comments is we took a transcript of the hearing, and we wrote down every single comment that was provided at that time. And then we have provided answers. Some answers were repetitive, so some see something else. But we provided written responses to all of the comments. And as I said before, we also included some backup data. For example, there were comments about fire protection. We included the minutes from the fire meeting, from the fire commission meeting. We also provided the results of the hearing when it was determined that this was the appropriate path to achieve permits for this project. And then we also provided a white paper on the health and safety impacts of solar and photovoltaics as backup information for some of the comments with respect to runoff, falling off of panels, electromagnetic activity from the panels, fire related issues from the panels. So the intent of providing this was to provide backup information for the comments that we. So.
And that's all in this here that was provided to you.
So some light reading for you folks if you have insomnia or something like that. So that really represents the plan revisions associated with our response to comments and the resubmittal package, we covered the process related to coming through the commission, so we provided that decommissioning plan. So since we don't have comments from the town engineer back yet, and we received some additional comments today, I'm going to file a letter with Mr. Carter to hold the hearing open. So I'm not going to ask you folks to close it tonight, because there's some more things we will need to work through. I obviously need to we'll need to work with the town engineer to see any of his last comments, and then possibly anything you'd like to add to the
Yeah, so Paul Michaud, attorney for the project, 515 7 Point Drive, Middletown. I just want to make you all aware that we did have a preliminary, the project had a preliminary meeting with the borough attorney today. And so if the project, if the project is approved, we are going to start working with the borough, city attorney, and the tax assessor to come to a personal property tax agreement for the project, which is pretty substantial, adds pretty substantial to the tax base. So I just wanted to make you aware of that we started that meeting. We actually had a meeting, first meeting this afternoon.
yeah, go ahead.
Is it because this is new, solar arrays and being able to tax solar arrays, or?
Yeah, so there's different rules under the statute. Certain projects are tax exempt, certain projects are taxable. Regardless, the owner of this project has agreed to pay personal property taxes to the borough, regardless of whether it's exempt or not. And that's the purpose for entering into an agreement. So when the project is not trying to avoid paying taxes whatsoever, even if it's allowed under the statute.
So how, oh, go ahead. No, go ahead. I was actually gonna go back to decom, so if you've got something about taxes, send that.
No, go ahead.
As far as the decom goes, and I apologize that I don't remember, the life cycle on this project is what?
30 years.
30 years?
Yeah, it's 20 with a
10 years. Yeah, it's
with a
I'm sorry, 20 years with 2 5-year extensions. The warranties are 25 years on the panels, 10 on the inverters. So it's expected to go 25 years.
And then as part of the decom process, how you return this land to the original condition? So that way, in 25, 30 years, whenever this becomes decom, everything in this property will either A, be resubmitted for a new install, a new solar farm, or else it will be returned to its original state greenfield.
correct. You're required to restore it back to the condition. So you remove the panels, you remove the racking, you remove the fencing, and restore it to you need to make sure it's loamed and seeded and stabilized back to a vegetated condition.
Is there any testing of the soil after this, as part of the decom process, to make sure there wasn't any type of leaching or any of that stuff going on?
So the panels themselves are a closed system, and there's nothing that can leach off of them. Between rainwater just falls off of them. It's a closed system. So there's not necessarily a provision to do that automatically, but environmental regulations, when properties change hands and things like that, you perform phase 1 studies and things like that. So the fact that it was a solar project will be noted in that, but the inherent nature of the panels and what's going on out there is inert. There's no fluids piping through anything. It's conduits and cables and the racking system. So there's nothing to
I mean, there's not any storage of any kind on this property at all.
No.
It's just strictly solar farm itself.
Solar
And
farm,
supporting-
yes, and equipment.
Yes, and we have the actual panel that would go on here, if you want to take a look at it. See what it back, see- go on the field.
The commissioning plan is a requirement with D, correct?
With Eversource and with.
Outsource. It's required under the Connecticut Siting Council, so all projects automatically do a commission plan, and those projects post a decommissioned bond. Sure that it will actually get done. in 25 years.
That is the actual panel that you're gonna use?
Yes,
Which way does it go? This way or
horizontal.
that way? And what do you got, a pipe holding it up?
Yep, these are intended to be tracking panels. So these panels, as the sun goes, they'll move, they're called single access trackers. So they will track with the sun throughout the day, and then over the night, they very slowly go back to waiting for the sun to come up on the east.
What's the height of that? What is the height? When you put it on that?
I'm 6'6", I can stand next to it.
Yeah,
Well, I go horizontal.
They lay flat.
Yeah.
And at your previous meetings that you've been with us, they're at 9 feet up
No,
No.
no,
or 8
they're-
feet.
no.
I didn't think they were.
Yeah, they're, I think maximum, it's like 2 feet on the low side, and then the high side will obviously be higher, and then there's a point in time where they're level with the tractor when it's at noon.
Straight up.
And then they'll be, so the lip, the height of the lip above the land varies as the day goes on.
At the planning commission meeting, you had a person here who stated the closest they will ever be to the ground is 26 inches.
Correct.
You just have a picture of a solar farm that you did or?
Yeah, we have a number, we finished a couple very recently in Bethlehem, Bristol, we've finished a couple, we can give you some recent
Yeah, it'd be
construction.
nice when you see the picture.
Yeah, we can finish.
Yeah, and that would be similar tracking system, similar contractor. So it would be a very representative picture of what's going on.
How many feet in between those panels?
Again, remembering that when they're horizontal, they'll be a little closer and that, but, you know, it's laid out right now that they are 10 feet apart. So if they're, you know, all facing east, they'll be a heck of a lot further apart than that.
Any other questions from the commissioners? No, sir. So how do we want to handle?
Well, I'll read in the planning commission referral, and then I have people that have sent in letters since our last meeting that I'll read in, and then you can open it up to the public if you like. So November 3rd, to the Nordic Zoning Commission from the Nordic Planning Commission, zoning referral. Dear commissioners, please be advised that at a meeting of the Planning Commission held on Monday, November 1st, 2021, the following was decided: send a positive referral to the Zoning Commission regarding a special permit application for a proposed solar panel farm to be located at 0 Bosco Drive. Applicant David H. Trepic, Tritech Americas LLC, with the following recommendation. The Zoning Commission does not approve this application until they receive an acceptable decommission plan. That was again a recommendation. Laura Rotella, Town Planner, Naugatuck, Connecticut. On that one, and it's supposed to be WEO. And now I will, I'll read in these letters that we received since the last meeting. Dominic D. Piano, 11 Dunnikin Avenue, Naugatuck, Connecticut, 06770. October 21st, 2021, to the Naugatuck Zoning Commission. I am in receipt of your notice regarding a solar panel facility on Bosco Drive. I have no objection to the proposal, signed Dominic D. Piano. From Jean Boehner of 33 Evelyn Drive, Naugatuck, Connecticut. I won't read her number. October 21st, 2021, to the Naugatuck Zoning Commission. I am writing this letter regarding the solar farm proposed in my neighborhood. I have been a resident of Evelyn Drive for over 50 years and am familiar with the property where it is planned. I think it is wonderful that Naugatuck will be one of the first communities to welcome a zero emissions renewable energy farm. We owe to our grandchildren a cleaner and safer planet. I trust that all safety precautions will be taken to safeguard against injury to neighbors and inquisitive folks, especially youngsters. I noticed that plenty of room still exists to provide pathways for wild animals to traverse Lewis Hill unencumbered. I respectfully request that you approve this worthwhile project. Warm regards, Jean Boehner. Kevin Eldridge, 145 Crodell Road, Naugatuck, Connecticut, 06770, October 22nd, 2021, to the Zoning Commission of Naugatuck. This letter is to express my support for the planned solar farm on Bosco Drive. I reside on an adjoining property and have had the use and enjoyment of this property for many years. I have strong feelings about nature and wildlife and do not feel that this project will have an adverse impact on the wonderful creatures that inhabit our neighborhood. I think the benefit of producing clean, carbon-free electricity far outweighs any imagined negative impacts. The plan shows that most of the property will continue to remain in harmony with the surrounding land. We should all embrace the new technology that reduces decades of pollution to our air and water. Please give the green light to this green endeavor. Sincerely, Kelvin Eldridge. Again, these are in your package that I presented to you. Carlo and Daniela Scalara, 2 Bosco Drive, Naugatuck, Connecticut, 06770, October 22nd, 2021. To the Naugatuck Land Use Commission, we are writing to express our support for the solar farm on Bosco Drive. We have lived directly beside the property for several years and are familiar with the lay of the land. We have rooftop solar panels on our home and are quite proud that we are doing our part to keep the planet clean. We are very excited to host a novel approach to electric production. We are the closest family on Bosco Drive to the planned solar array. We see only positive results from an approval of this plan. Sincerely, Carlos Scalora and Daniela Scalora. October 29th, 2021, to whom it may concern, a few days ago, Kurt Bosco asked me whether I might put on paper my thoughts about his proposed solar project on his property, which abuts our home at 60 Farmstead Lane. We built our home here in 2000. So for many years, Kurt has been a sort of neighbor of ours. While I and my late wife for many years very much enjoyed looking out on Kurt's property and watching deer graze in the meadow, we always assumed that ultimately Kurt would choose to develop that property, and we accepted this as his right. I admit that I expected new homes, but Kurt has informed me of the basics of his project. I'll freely admit being a non-technical person, but both in this particular case and in a larger philosophical sense, I believe people should be able to use their property as they see fit, provided that the development poses no physical danger to others. In this particular case, I am not aware of any such danger. While I understand that the project may lead to some temporary inconvenience while construction is underway, and that I may or may not enjoy the view, I don't believe that constitutes a reason to object. So it is correct to say that I am not in opposition to the proposed project. Paul Estrick, 60 Farmstead Lane. That I've also provided to you, there is to the Naugatuck Zoning Commission, we, the undersigned residents of Naugatuck, are aware of a proposal before you for a solar facility at the end of Bosco Drive. We live near the subject property. We have no objections to the proposal. And I'll attempt to read some of their names here. I believe it's John Delina of 57 Shattuck Road, a butter, yes. Walter Sabalachek, 48 Shattuck Road, a butter, yes. Charles Robbins, 47 Shattuck Road, a butter, yes.
They're typed on the next page, they're all typed.
I thought it was the second page.
I see a
yeah.
struggle, huh?
They said I was having fun.
Patrick Anna Perosa, 54 Shattuck Road, a butter, yes. Jessica Anna Perosa, 54 Shattuck Road, yes. Wilfredo Nunez, 1 Bosco Drive, a butter, yes. Peter Barnes, 119 Cordell Road, a butter, yes. Dorothy Daniels, 103 Evelyn Drive, a butter, no. Victoria Straub, 56 Shattuck Road, a butter, yes. Lisa Lasky, 55 Shattuck Road, a butter, yes. Kenneth Grotke, 74 Evelyn Drive, a butter, no. And the final one is that I just received today, and I believe I handed this out to you. Christine Yanelli, 9 Chestnut Street, Norfolk Conservation Commissioner, Connecticut Conservation Member, Nature Conservation Member. I agree that solar farms are a suitable way to create renewable energy. We want to build an eco-friendly future and do not want to cause pollution. The best site available for a solar farm is using brownfields, making brownfields green, not the other way around, making green fields brown. The area in town between Elm Street and Ward Street that was once used as a parking lot for chemical employees would be a worthy place to situate a solar farm, and the southerly direction of the sunshine is plentiful and reliable helping with consumption of electricity. There are no trees to be cut down here. Another area of possible solar farm is the land once used for Ural tires, rubber sheets, and other rubber type discards. This area is located past 362 Cherry Street Extension on the left side of the street as it runs down to the fenced in gate to the old chemical factory. There is acreage here for a large solar farm with plenty of sunshine coming in from the east, south, and west all day. This area is in proximity to the substation a few hundred feet away near the Cherry Street Extension substation. A substation is a key consideration. The nearer it is to a solar farm, the more advantageous the solar farm will be because it is less than 2 miles. The longer the distance between a substation and the solar farm, the greater the risk associated with the project. There are other problems with solar farms, such as runoff from downpours and lasting downpours that we've experienced recently. These downpours can be dangerous, leading to flooding and risks of erosion of the soil, and dirt must stay in place. Soil disturbances and harsh weather can cause solar farms to lose efficiency or cause harm to the surrounding environment. The structures could shift and become less efficient or become damaged beyond function. The area on Bosco Drive is not an adequate site for the solar farm, understanding that there are brownfield sites more efficient and usable in the town of Naugatuck, and these places could be pursued as solar farms. Another area of interest for a solar farm is on top of Hunter's Mountain at Laurel Park. Thank you, Christine Yanelli, Naugatuck Conservation Commission.
I actually had these letters, I had a couple questions, a couple additional questions with regards to it. How are these exactly mounted into the ground? I don't know if you can give a quick, like how deep do they go? Is there any concern about any of that shit?
So, he said shift.
Oh. Lori and I heard something else.
SHIFT.
The foundation and racking system for the solar panels is designed by a structural in combination with structural and geotechnical engineers. Well, we send geotechnical engineers out to the site. They do soil borings to determine the soil properties of the site. There's other tests that we do too. It's called a pull test to check the resistive nature, the friction nature of the soil. So the racking system and the foundation for the panels is designed and reviewed and approved in the same way that a foundation for any other structure would be. So we have gone out and done geotechnical investigations out at the site, and that data is used to design the system. Some that isn't finally designed yet, but if you'll indulge me for a second, some sites you just use weight. We have some sites on landfills. You can't drill into a landfill. So you build you have a sled and you put weight on the sled, and then that supports the panels. A site like this, probably we're either gonna do a helical pile that's gets drilled into the ground, or some sort of pile that gets hammered into the ground. Like when you see they're putting in the guide rail on the side of the road and they hammer that in. So it is a engineered foundation system which supports the panels. The site is topsoil vegetated, so that it will be vegetated. So and the slopes are not very severe under the panels, so the threat of erosion causing undermining is negligible.
Is there any PM, and I'm sure there's gonna be PM on this, but preventative maintenance done on these panels and on the
So
electrical, is there anything done to review the foundations of these?
so the system itself, the operating, there's a all of these sites have an active operation and maintenance group monitoring them. I'm not gonna say at all times, but I mean, at night they're off, but they're monitored, and anytime that there's a reduction in output or yield from it, they can do diagnostic either on the computer or come out to the site. So if any of the panels are ever damaged, they can tell based on the output of the site that there's something wrong out on the site, and they can go out and check it out. There's landscape type maintenance that's going on, and at the time, if there's anything observed that could potentially be a problem like that, or the potholes in the road and things like that, that will get taken care of by the operation and maintenance group.
And then the other question I had was, with regards to, excuse me, the wildlife there, has there been any review of any natural inhabitants of that area that pose a concern? Endangered barn owl making a home in a tree, things like that. Is there any of that type of reviews?
So I can't necessarily speak to something happening in the future, but our process is, because this needs to get a general permit through DEEP, you're required to consult the National Diversity Database, which is a database that the state produces, which has mapping of where potential endangered species are in an area. And if there are any hits on your site, you coordinate with DEEP, provide you mitigation measures, either construction or operation to protect the species. We don't have any on this site. We went through that process. We've started our DEEP process already. We don't have any NVVB hits on our site. On other sites, we have had hits. I'm going to use as an example, if an endangered turtle is known to be in the area, the mitigation measure is you need to install, it's not silly even saying it, turtle-proof fencing. I think just about any fence is probably turtle-proof, but you need to install turtle-proof fencing around the site during the construction activity, when the construction is going on. And then in the morning, you need to do a turtle walk to make sure there aren't any turtles on your site that maybe have stuck through this turtle-proof fencing. So that's one potential mitigation measure that gets proposed should you have any NDVB hits. For this site in particular, there are no endangered species in the area. Review of the state map.
Any
Okay, the final thing is I did submit to you today, which was a third-party review from Trinkus Engineering. And this is the document that they've been referring to that our acting town engineer, Jim Stewart, wanted to read through. Provided it also to the applicant so that if they choose to respond to, they're able to. But we just received it late yesterday, or was it early today? So nobody's had a chance to respond to it.
Like,
Yeah, so no one's had a chance to respond to it yet.
in response to the brownfields, is that the parcel that we just approved a site plan for the Naugatuck Industrial Park Phase 3?
Yeah, yes.
So there's already a proposal, an approved proposal on that land down there. You were part of that.
And I think that's all that I have that's been presented to us since the last meeting.
I know you wanted to get to the public. I
No,
just
that's
have
okay. Go ahead.
Two questions. One, the panels seem to be so light. In the case of high winds, hurricanes, huge gusts,
Want to go give it a try?
I'm sure I can't do
I
it.
can't either.
Oh,
I
no.
think it's heavy as heck as far as I'm concerned. No, that is part of the design. So they are fastened to the tracking system, and then the forces of the wind on the sail or panel, as it were, that is what you're designing against. That's why you do the pull-out test to understand what kind of forces are required to pull something out of the native soil. So it is taken into consideration. It is absolutely part of the design. It's not just the weight of the panels pushing down, it's the uplift force of wind on the panels. And they have design standards for it, just like for these windows or buildings and things like that, based on the area of the country that you're in, elevation, et cetera, et cetera.
Any other question? If the company should go out of business, do you automatically go to the decommission plan? What happens?
Well, it's an asset, so it technically could change hands. So if a company goes out of business, I'm sure that there are other companies that come in and pick them up, so it doesn't automatically go to the decommissioning plan. But the bond set up in the decommissioning plan, which provides monies to restore it, called upon it. It doesn't need to be called upon at the end of the project. It could be called if something goes, but remember, this is now something that's been approved and tied into Eversource, and the Eversource is relying on it. So, so the odds of it just being mothballed should this company go somewhere are negligible.
Any other comments from commissioners?
No, sir.
All right, at this point, I'll open it up to the public for comment.
If anyone would like to speak, please raise your hand and unmute. I'll unmute. Okay, Melissa.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having another episode of public comment. I just had one question, or two questions. All that information that's on the website.
Melissa, name and
Yeah.
address.
Can you hear me now?
No, your name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry, Melissa Leonard, 450 Guntown Road in Naugatuck. Yeah, all the information that, the response to the public comment and all of that information that's on the town website, was the public notified of that after the last the last meeting? I wasn't able to attend, I apologize.
It's been our standard
It's-
every meeting. That's how we've been doing it since COVID.
So,
Okay, yeah, it's just that sometimes, people who showed up for that public hearing may not have been at another one of your meetings, so they didn't, they may not have known where too. And I understand it's going to be continued, but I'm just thinking for future reference, if you have a public comment, maybe let everybody know where to find the documentation because it's not obvious. I know just because from inland wetlands, I know where to look for it, but it's not obvious. And, you know, a lot of people don't come to these meetings unless it's something local and they may never have been to a meeting before. So just please, if you could in the future, after a public comment, just let everybody know that that's where they could find, because there was a lot of information there that was, you know, good to read before this meeting. So my other question is the stormwater management for the project. Is that rated capable of handling 100-year storms, 500-year, whatever they are now, that we seem to have every 2 years?
So just for the record, Chris Gagnon, BL Companies. The requirement is that we design for up to the 100-year storm event based on the rainfall data that is provided to us by the state. So I don't get to choose what rainfall events I'm using. That's dictated to us by the regulation.
Okay, great. So it's for 100-year storm. Good. I am strongly in favor of solar fields. I'm not thrilled about clear cutting areas to put them in. I agree with everybody who has said that, you know, brownfields first before we destroy green fields. But I understand that the commission can't deny a permit unless it goes against our regulations. The only thing I could find was in section 33.2.1, harmony with development. It doesn't seem to me like this is in harmony with the development that's there now. It's a well-treed residential area, and this is a commercial venture. So, and I understand, you know, when you have 13 acres of land, it's nice to do something to help pay the taxes, especially in this town. We all know how high they can be. I just think that it's not a great use of this property. But I understand that, you know, in the big picture, maybe it's a good thing. But I think as far as the neighbors are concerned, it's not exactly the right place for it. And I think that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Melissa. Mr. Green, did you still want, you were next?
Yes,
Go ahead.
I'd be happy to yield to Mr. Umland if he has a short, I have a pretty long presentation this evening. So if any members of the public have shorter comments, I'm happy to yield to them.
Sure, my comment isn't particularly long, so I'd absolutely appreciate that.
Okay, go ahead. If you could state your name and address, Mr. Umlin.
Sure, my name is Ian Umlin. My family and I do reside on Graham Ridge Road, which immediately abuts the proposed development to the south. I echo the sentiments that were just brought up concerning, you know, how much wonderful greenfield would be destroyed by this development. I live in the area and I see it nearly every day. It's a beautiful wooded area filled with wildlife, and it would be a real shame to see that ripped up and destroyed. I'd also like to turn your attention to a study that was conducted last year by the University of Rhode Island. After analyzing thousands of property sales in Rhode Island and in Massachusetts, our neighboring states, for over a decade and a half, the economists at the university concluded that solar development has a significant and very negative impact on nearby homes values. The study found that prices of homes within a mile of solar installations declined on average by 1.7%, and homes within a tenth of a mile went down by a full 7%. So I'm not sure whether the homeowners previously voicing their support for this project, or at least those that were truly in real close proximity to it as we are, if they were really aware of this very real risk of property value loss. And I would wonder whether they might have the same opinion if they were aware of that fact. So I'm wondering why should our community of the bordering homeowners suffer these very significant financial losses in order to accommodate this project.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any other questions?
No, that's it.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak before Attorney Green? I don't see any other hands. Attorney Green, you're up.
Thank you very much. For the record, my name is Joel Green. I practice law in Bridgeport with the law offices of Green and Gross. It's my pleasure to appear before the commission this evening on behalf of Inga and Anthony Oren, who reside on the abutting property at 66 Farmstead Lane. On behalf of my clients, we urge the commission to deny this application, and we will make a presentation this evening and present, I think, there's a lot of information. These applications are actually quite complicated, but we'll ask the commission to deny this application because, first of all, there's a lot of missing information. And I know, and I appreciate the questions that the commission has asked this evening. And really, many of those questions are not answered by this application. And I was struck by the fact that there seems to be a real lack of documentation as to the specific structure, the specific method of installation. I understand the comments that were offered by the applicant, but we'll ask you to deny this because it doesn't meet the standards for the issuance of a special permit. The size and intensity of this proposed development exceed really what's just fair and reasonable in a neighborhood like this. I know that that's been raised by some of the public speakers before me. This property, the property of my clients will be adversely impacted in terms of its value. So that goes to one of your standards, and we will provide evidence on that. This will provide drainage and erosion issues, which really have not been properly documented, have not been properly answered. And we will suggest that the site would not lend itself to this kind of development based on drainage and erosion concerns due to its topography. And I will argue and I will make a presentation on your regulations and the fact that, in my view, this is not a permitted use under your regulations, and I will address the interpretation, which I am familiar with. And I'm going to change the order of our presentation this evening because of the many questions that you did ask, and again, many good questions. And I think that what I'm going to do first, before I get into the technical zoning nuts and bolts involved, is I am going to turn it over to Steve Trinkus of Trinkus Engineering. Before I do that, though, I just want to understand, I note that the applicant has asked that the public hearing be held open. And I frequently, there's this natural rhythm where the applicant makes a presentation, the public has an opportunity to comment, and the applicant provides a rebuttal. And I sometimes quip with commissions that sometimes these applications don't run as public hearings, but they kind of turn into workshops. And what I'm trying to understand is I note that the applicant asked to hold the public hearing open. I presume that there won't be any new material offered by the applicant, but that the applicant will merely respond to what's been offered. And if that's not the case, then maybe we shouldn't present tonight if the application is not complete. But I would just ask for your guidance, Mr. Chairman, on kind of what the roadmap is. And we're happy to present, and we're frankly eager to present tonight. But if there's going to be new material or the application is going to change in any significant way, then I don't want to compromise my client's position. So, I put that question to you.
Applicant respectfully request that it be able to respond to any public comment tonight. And we also request that this commission close the public comment start tonight so that we could move on with this application. It seems to be going on for several months, and we would request that it close tonight, but we'd be able to respond to any public comment presented. Should keep it open.
Yeah, no, I think we need to keep it open as well. I think since we received the answers to their questions, the public needs to look at it, digest it, and then come back at our next meeting with all their questions. And I think we need a format to handle these questions, because it's going to be, I'm sure, no one had it. I didn't have an opportunity to look at everything, and neither did the public. So, I mean, that's my take. I mean, what do you guys think?
I agree. Yeah. Leave it open.
So do we want to have has he looked at the document? Or have you looked at the document they submitted with all the answers?
I've had an opportunity to absolutely to review that. I would just, in terms of, I know that you only received Mr. Trinkus's letter yesterday, but in fairness, the revised site plans and the updated site plan was filed just a week ago. So we've been scrambling, to respond as well. And
yeah, so I mean, I would think that you would want to do it at the next meeting to prepare your questions, your answers, and so forth, so you're not rushing. And and that's my take, but I mean, what does everybody else think?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Is that fair?
we're happy to, Mr. Trinkus could, what we could do is, Mr. Trinkus could go through his letter for the benefit of the commission this evening. And that way, if you have questions right off the bat, he could introduce and sort of expand upon what's in his letter. And then we would postpone from there, and we'll come back at the next meeting, and I can, depending on sort of what comes forward after that, then that may change my presentation. So I'm happy to do that.
If the commission is interested, what Mr. Green, I guess, is saying is that Mr. Trinkus can make a presentation tonight, or we can wait for Jim Stewart, who is going to look at it and write a memo in regard to what he sees in regard to the new project. He was going to have that right. I can ask Jim to get that to you guys relatively soon. We put it up on the website also, and they're welcome to come back next month if they want. This way, our town engineer, acting town engineer, Jim Stewart, will have a chance to look at, and you can see what his comments are too before. You will have obviously time to read Mr. Trinkus's report if you want in that meantime also. But it's up to you if you want to hear him tonight.
I think I prefer to have Mr. Stewart, just because of the objective third party reviewing.
Just speak up a bit, just to make
Oh,
sure.
I'm sorry. I think I prefer Mr. Stewart to do the review first, me personally, just because I prefer an objective third party to review and analyze it and see if he agrees with the conclusions or not. And then that gives us time to do our own research and review, and then see if we come to a consensus at that point.
I'm good with the other commissioners.
Yeah.
So you
Okay.
don't want to hear Mr. Trinkus's?
No.
Just,
No.
could we have an overview of your objections, the general objections? And then,
Well,
We're gonna hear them both.
yeah, okay. I'll-
We're gonna be here for 6 months.
Well, I think Mr. Green wanted to talk about when we did an interpretation, which is different from Mr. Trinkus's report or review. And if Mr. Green wanted to do that, that's up to, if the commission wants him to make that tonight.
I would like to hear that. You would? I would.
yeah, that's fine.
I mean, some of my presentation springs off of Mr. Trinkus's report. So
Would you rather do it all at once then?
yeah, I guess with that, with the understanding that we can come back next month and do that. And that you're not inclined to hear Mr. Trinkus tonight, I think we come back next month and make our presentation.
And it'll
All
close
right,
next
I'm
month.
fine with that.
It'll close next month, correct? Next
Say that
month.
again?
It'll close next month then?
It potentially may. It doesn't have to.
Must close by 11/23/21.
Well, there are extensions, and tonight
Unless
we
extension
would be
granted.
granting an extension, which for the next meeting would be 21 days of 65 days of extensions.
Can,
Realistically, you have 65 days of extension that a applicant can ask for.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Mr. Trinkus has indicated that he would like to just respond to a few items that were raised this evening that are, that were discussed this evening, just for the commission's benefit, if the commission is willing. He'll be brief, as I understand it.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Stephen Trinkus. I'm a licensed professional engineer in Connecticut and Maryland, with an office in Southbury, Connecticut. The applicant in their initial presentation went through a few comments that I want to address. I will not touch the 8-page letter which we submitted yesterday. And as Attorney Green pointed out, the plans were revised plans for tonight's meeting by the applicant were, filed about a week ago. First off, the colored renderings the applicant provided from our client's property onto the site are really misleading. If you look at Google Maps, you will see that there is trees on the Oren's property. There is not a lawn up to the property line. Furthermore, the site slopes up anywhere between 20 and 28 feet from the stone wall up to the north. So the tree line that is in these renderings appears more to be lower. The terrain is dropping off. It's actually going up. So the view is not reflective of field conditions. There is no section line provided on the plans to know, where this view was taken from. And I speak on these points as having a Bachelor of Science in Forestry. So, I can talk about trees from my educational background. The screening proposed by the applicant, evergreen screenings, while evergreens do get tall, the crown doesn't get big. The top of a pine tree stays relatively narrow. The bottom may get bushy, but when you're trying to hide things, the top is very thin, and it continues to grow that way for a long number of years. So the renderings really are not reflective of what my client would see from the property because the land is going up pretty substantially. Because this application has not gone in front of the siting council because it's 0.99 megawatts, the carbon debt analysis that is required under a siting council application is not required, evidently. Some of the comments made tonight about putting these on brownfields or over existing pavement are very relevant because you're talking clear cutting a site. There's some open meadow, but you're clear cutting a bunch of forest. And therefore you're going to lose all this carbon that is sequestered currently in the trees and in the soil, and it disappears completely. Furthermore, it doesn't come back just when the array is put aside in 20 or 30 years. A forest takes time to grow up. The soils take time to restore themselves before carbon is sequestered. If you look at, the loss of the carbon from clear cutting a forest, then solar on ground mounted arrays doesn't make any sense at all if you're concerned about carbon dioxide. It is a tremendous loss. As an example, a tree that's between 0 and 10 years old will sequester about 13 pounds of carbon a year. From 10 years up to 80 years, which is the average lifespan of a tree in the northern, what we call the northern hardwood forest, is 48 pounds of carbon per year. And that's one tree. Typically, there's 80 to 100 trees per acre. So it doesn't take much to do the math to realize how much you're losing simply in the trees, not including the soil, which is actually a greater amount. So that's a big, environmental impact. As these types of panels are rotating, there is no details about the system that is rotating them. Is it a hydraulic system? Is it an electrical system? Furthermore, as they're rotating versus a fixed panel, in a fixed panel, the designers know, they're all facing south, so the bottom is lower, the top is higher, and they know which way the prevailing winds go. They can then design their anchoring system accordingly. But as these panels go from facing due east to effectively due west, depending on the time of day and where that panel is and what the wind is blowing, it changes the entire dynamic of the anchoring system on the site, because you might have the panels facing west and get one of our afternoon thunderstorms. It won't be a big deal. That storm happens in the morning when they're facing east coming from the west. Now the underside of the panels are receiving all of the force of the wind. It was mentioned, and there was a bond amount in the decommissioning plan. There is no bond amount. It talks about that the Sunjet may provide a bond amount. So there is no bond, and it is a very legitimate concern that the legal entity in charge of a solar array may disappear in 20 or 30 years. So the town really needs to have a bond in place to ensure that this all gets taken care of. On the stormwater management, the applicant talked about the level spreaders, and that's the only thing I'm going to talk about now because everything else is in my letter. What is actually proposed is a shallow riprap trench. It's about 12 inches deep. I think it may be 6 foot wide, and there's a little earth berm on the downhill side. A level spreader is designed to have uniform flow over the entire length of the level spreader. A berm made of dirt will never be absolutely level. There will always be high and low points, and water from this riprap swale, which is not dead level, will find the one spot and become concentrated flow. Stormwater is a significant concern being discharged from these two basins because you're discharging concentrated flow onto a slope that only sees overland flow at the current time. I think there was one letter from one of the neighbors that talked about the proximity to a substation and how important it is to a solar array. That's really not the most important factor. The important factor is whether there is phase 3 power lines on the road that you're tying into. The site I designed in Winchester, Connecticut, which is quite honestly in a very rural area, happens to have phase 3 lines on the road. And that is why the solar company chose that site for it. It's not anywhere near a substation. So, there's a lot of issues. The last one I'd like to bring up is based on research I've done on other panels. Technology is changing rapidly for the solar panels, most of which are made overseas in Asia. On average, a solar panel converts, it will generate 22%. Well, let's see, I guess a better way to say it is the efficiency of converting sunlight to power is about 22%, which is really a low percentage when you think about it. Additionally, these panels lose 0.5% a year. So that 22% in 20 years out is now down to 11% of power generation. And furthermore, the 0.99 megawatt is the peak power outage between noon and 2 p.m. on a given day. This site with the rotating panels may have a little bit longer time because the panels will track, but on a typical array where they're fixed facing south, that's the peak power, and it's a bell curve. Otherwise, it starts at 0 at 7 a.m., goes up to the peak and goes right back to 0 at the end of the day. You also don't generate power on, significantly cloudy or rainy days. According to DEP, 56% of the days annually are what they term sunny or partly sunny. Those are the days that you're generating power. The other 44%, you're not generating the power. So it's important to look at the big picture with this as far as how much energy is actually being generated. Those are the comments I had based on what I heard tonight, and we'll present the full my full review next meeting. I'd like to request that we be able to present first since we're deferring to next time. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I saw the panels this evening and we're happy to defer or till your next meeting. Could the applicant just identify the dimension of the panel? It's a little bit hard to tell here in Zoom land. And can the applicant identify how many of those panels the applicant plans to install? That would be helpful.
You guys have that information?
In the file. In the submittal.
Yeah.
Where is
You can look at the public records. See if you see it.
In your original application, you're stating?
I'm sorry, I can't hear that.
Yeah, we're checking on something to answer that.
Mr. Chairman, if I don't mean to press the applicant or take up the time of the commission, maybe this is something that the applicant can just submit in the next couple of
Well,
days.
it is in the file. We're just trying to find it.
Okay,
I don't see where it was on anything you submitted to me.
I didn't see it.
In a print.
It's on all the Eversource submittals. I don't know if it's made it to the site.
I didn't see it in the online documents.
Yeah, you can provide that if you want next meeting. I thought they referred to it as planning.
We'll have them provide that for the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I remember I thought it was over 3,000 panels that you said. Again, we've been at multiple meetings, so we might be confused.
And the panels look to be about 4 by 8. Is that?
The size of the panel itself,
And how many?
This is 3 foot by 6.
3 by 6?
so what they're saying is the panel they brought in tonight was 3 foot by 6 foot.
And is that the actual panel that will be installed?
That's what they said tonight.
Panel was provided by the contractor who has installed them as a representative of the panels that they install. So that's.
We'll get the clarification for the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it.
Any other comments?
Any other comments from the public?
Right. Any other comments from the public?
Nope, there's no other hands up.
All right, so then I'll continue the public hearing.
Yeah, we'll do it for 6:05 at
What's the date?
December 15th.
So I'll continue the public hearing December 15th at 6:05 for the proposed special permit application for 1 megawatt solar panel facility for the property located at 0 Bosco Drive, account number 016-9188, applicant Tritech Americas LLC.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, where do you want to go from here?
Well, the next public hearing you could do, or if you wanted to take a few minute recess, if anyone's got to use the men's room or anything, or ladies room, or if you're ready
Take a
to.
recess for 5 minutes? All right, yeah, let's go. 2 minutes.
Coffee, water.
Yeah, I hear you.
Recess?
Yeah, let's take a recess for.
What time is it now?
It's,
7:51, so back by 8 o'clock.
yeah. All right, take it easy. You're gonna open the meeting at 7:55. All right, good.
All right, so the next thing you have to do is just the next public hearing for poultry.
All right, so I'm gonna open up the 6:10 public hearing for live poultry regulations and requirements in the Naugatuck zoning regulation, applicant Borough of Naugatuck. Public hearing opened 9/15/21, no end date because we're the Borough of Naugatuck applicant. And right now it's 7:56.
Okay, and I do have one submittal to us via an email that came today. So November 17th, 2021, Naugatuck Zoning Commission, 229 Church Street, Naugatuck, Connecticut, 06770. Dear Naugatuck Zoning Commission, I am writing to express my strenuous objection to relaxing Naugatuck's current requirements of 3 acres of property to raise and keep livestock, including poultry and rabbits. First, allowing people to keep poultry and rabbits on their land will negatively impact my ability to enjoy my home and my yard. Prior to permanently relocating to Connecticut after 22 years in California, I did a lot of research and chose Naugatuck partially because of the town's seemingly high standards for animals, including the current 3-acre requirement and limit of 5 dogs per household. While my house sits on 0.7 acres of property, I can see into both my next door neighbor's backyards from my house and yard. In Naugatuck, there are many ordinances that not only protect property values and therefore future revenue for the city, but also ensure the health, safety, and enjoyment of all taxpayers. These ordinances include, but are not limited to, blight abatement, noise limits, building within 20 feet of your property line, etc. Requiring 3 acres for residents to keep livestock and fowl on their property is another of those ordinances and should remain one. Second, allowing poultry and livestock to be raised on smaller plots of land will bring both humans and pets into closer contact with predators, particularly coyotes. If one of my neighbors were to raise small livestock on their property, that would increase the predator activity in my yard as well. There would be nothing I could do to safeguard myself or my pets, as lights, cameras, or fences will not deter a coyote from entering one's property. Once again, my ability to enjoy my home and my yard would be negatively impacted by the relaxing of this ordinance. Third, in light of recent epidemics and pandemics, including COVID-19, being linked to both the consumption and processing of animal products, I feel that now is the time to loosen our cultural dependence on animal agriculture. Certainly, one could argue that allowing residents to raise meat in their backyards would be a step in ameliorating the dangers of animal agriculture, but I believe that it only underscores the misconception that we need meat to survive and will do nothing to lessen the environmental and public health impact of raising and slaughtering livestock. Currently, 9.7 million Americans are embracing plant-based diets. Athletes at the top of their games are switching to plant-based eating to give them a competitive edge, including Serena Williams, Cam Newton, Kyrie Irving, Chris Paul, Patrick Baboon. 2 years ago, Burger King introduced their plant-based Impossible Whopper, while McDonald's planned to introduce their McPlant in 2021, and Pizza Hut will start offering dairy-free cheese in US markets. We already offer it in UK markets. So I am suggesting that Naugatuck ban meat and become the first plant-based town in America. Of course not. But I am suggesting that we have an opportunity to take a progressive approach to the environment and health of our residents. Finally, for the record, I am a vegan. I made the moral choice for myself many years ago. While I believe that killing of animals for food is wrong, I also believe that it is a moral choice that everyone needs to make for themselves. Therefore, I do not stand in front of Stop and Shop or Big Y or Walmart streaming slaughterhouse footage on my laptop. I do not inflict my moral choices on others, nor do I think others should inflict their choices on me. For the past 15 years, I've been a rabbit caregiver and have volunteered my time to educate people about the joys of living with house rabbits. Rabbits are smart. It is estimated that they rank between cats and dogs on the intelligence scale. They are affectionate and mischievous. They learn their names and how to use a litter box. They love to be pet They love to pet, and some even give kisses. The rabbits that are raised and slaughtered for meat are no different than rabbits sold as pets. In fact, in rescue, we are often referred to the big white bunnies, Florida whites, and Californians, as the golden retrievers of the bunny world because they are so laid back and make such wonderful family pets. I have also been lucky enough to have visited several animal sanctuaries and have gotten to meet some chickens and learned about their fascinating social structures. Chickens can recognize up to 100 different people, can communicate over 30 different vocalizations. Chickens also live longer than they are able to produce eggs and are often slaughtered when they stop laying. As I mentioned that earlier, I did research before I chose to buy a home in Nordic. One part of my research including joining the What's Happening in Nordic Facebook page. It was refreshing to see people coming together to create a real sense of community. Certainly, there are people who make snarky comments about the town, and there could be some silly bickering, but overall, it reflects the compassionate nature of residents of Naugatuck, from support for food drives and soup kitchens to offering advice on schools and home repairs to concern for lost cats and dogs. Naugatuck cares. It would be wonderful to see that care and concern extend to all sentient creatures. Thank you, Carly Message, 86 Sunset Drive, Naugatuck, Connecticut, 06770.
Just out of curiosity, when we talk about the rabbits as part of this ordinance, does that include rabbits that are inside the home or just strictly outside?
I think we would be.
That's, yeah, so I would assume that a rabbit on the property in the home or outside would be treated the
Prohibited.
exact same way.
Currently.
You're prohibited 3 acres or less.
I
Would
don't,
we be reaching in somebody's home
Well,
though?
you know what, we could, they don't,
right, I think the difference would be is that this is a rabbit that is kept inside the house. There's really no way of us knowing that it was there.
Right.
and it's not
So-
causing the disturbance or anything to the neighbors. There's no
Right.
smell, there's no anything on the outside.
But in essence, it's still the ordinance,
It doesn't differentiate.
right, it doesn't say, oh, but you can have one in your house. So I
Which we could
That
work
could
on
be-
that if you choose. The regulations
Could
that
be
I
a
typed
conflict.
up was just
That's what I was wondering.
a combination of everything I found out there. It was a starting point for the commission to review and for the public to make comments. And it appears that the only comments we're getting from the public is they don't want it.
Very negative, yeah.
what if someone had, well, we'll let the public talk, but what if somebody had a pet pig? Is that considered livestock? Some people have those Vietnamese pigs that are inside their house. Is that considered livestock? I mean, I don't really know of too many people that are raising animals to slaughter them regularly.
And
I'm sure it happens, but I don't know if that's something that I've been made aware of.
I'd just be worried about some people taking the initiative to potentially bring chickens into their basement, as opposed to having them outdoors.
Well, and again,
To
you're right there.
circumvent.
and it's happening now. I went into a house 2-3 years ago that had probably 100 pigeons in it, in the basement. And it was not nice.
But they're living there. That's how they're choosing to live. I mean, unless somebody complains, Ed doesn't know that this house is filled with pigeons
And that more, I felt, was a health issue
for them.
for the health department there because it was inside the house. And how we got informed of it was the pigeons were flying in and out of the basement regularly. And the guy who had a car next door let us know. Literally, that's how we found out. So I guess there's really no perfect answer to it.
No. That sounds like we might have to talk about how to differentiate between the two. Like,
Does-
we don't need,
What happens if someone says it's an ADA thing? Is it, it's a service animal, it's a,
Well, I'm thinking for the purpose of what we've been talking about, and thinking about is for the outside. I hesitate strongly that we start going into people's houses and regulate in-house what's gonna happen. And in the cases that something, an animal could be in a house causing a problem, that would fall under the health hazard.
I do
you
believe
know?
that would fall more under the health department.
And his cats, I've been into, when I was showing houses, you know, cats, lots of cats. It smells horrendous.
Yeah, and that's health, so
That's health.
I don't think we have to worry about regulating inside. I think we
No.
run
Ted's
into big
point, though-
problems that way.
Ted's point though is that currently the regulations do not differentiate. That's the problem.
I think we have.
But
to
we
be
would
just-
not easily get into someone's house.
Understood.
And like
Yeah,
I
you know.
think Eileen said, we're not regulating inside. That's just, I think then you're pushing over regulating,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
you know,
It's just
so we're on
how
the
it's
outside and where the pens go and where the cages go and how far off the property lines is what's in the regulation.
But is that a loophole? You have a person that has 5 chickens and he says, oh, I can't have it outside. I'll have them inside.
But he's gotta live with the stink and the,
No,
they choose to live with that.
there could be some people that will choose that. You want to open it up to the public.
Open up to the public for any comment.
If anybody would like to speak, just raise their hand, please.
I'd like to speak, but I don't have a hand tool.
Okay, then you can speak.
You took my hand tool. I want my hand tool. Rocky Vitale, 180 East Waterbury Road. Thank you very much for bringing this forward again. And contrary to some of the comments that I'm hearing, there was a few dozen people that were in favor of this that contacted me. And that's the reason that this was brought forward. And at this point, I don't believe we've had many complaints about this happening. On your revised ordinance, I was looking under the standards, number 2 and number 3. Any portion of the enclosure located closer than 10 feet to a property boundary or directly visible from a street line. And then number 3 says, a building shall be required for the backyard poultry, and any such building shall be located at least 10 feet from the lot line. Is there some conflict in the numbers? Because in some places you're saying 5 feet from the property line, like in number 1. In number 2, you're saying 10 feet. In number 3, you're saying 10 feet. I'm just not quite clear.
There could be from when I typed it up, and that's the purpose of the public hearing and
Yeah.
all this for us to discuss it and modify it as needed.
Oh, sure, I understand. Okay, I just want to bring that and a few more things forward.
Okay,
You mentioned a fence at least 4 feet tall. I'm wondering if the proper terminology would be a fence, because there's probably zoning or other laws that don't allow fence within 4 feet or 5 feet or a certain distance from a corner or a property line. And also, if you've got like a chain link fence around a tennis court, that should not be considered a fence. That should be considered tennis equipment. So I would think a fence around a chicken coop or a goat coop or whatever would be part of the equipment for the livestock and not actually meet the definition of a fence. So I just want to remind you that there are health laws that apply to this. There is a noise ordinance in town. I think we've pretty much covered any complaint that could come forward. I have no feathers in this game. I don't have any chickens. I don't plan on getting any livestock. Again, the reason I brought this forward was only because there was a strong sentiment from people that had contacted me about this. And that's it. I thank you very kindly.
Well, I will say this to you, Rocky, a fence can go right up to a property line,
Okay.
all right?
but I
And
think,
yes, there are many times where people will fence in a garden because of deer coming or other animals going into it that we don't know, or a dog pen, for instance, or people that have dog pens in their yard. We don't necessarily issue permits for that because it's for that specific structure.
Right.
So I think the idea was this, is that we were trying to keep people from having free range chickens just wandering. So we're trying to, lack of a word, keep them penned up.
Yeah.
And they're away from the property line, so I think that's where it's like so many feet off, and I will look at all these and kind of sync them up. Because we don't want the fence on the property line for your chicken coop, you want it off the property line, so the chickens aren't up to the property line.
Right.
You know, their coop could be 10 feet off, but the fence has to be also, and move towards their inside of their property instead of towards the neighbors.
And that was based on smells or any potential.
Of course. All right, I thank you very much.
All right, Diane Perangelo, you're up.
Hi. Thank Angelo, 30 Cadbury Place, Naugatuck. I just wanted to comment as a neighbor who is actually abutting a property currently with chickens. As you know, Cadbury Place is a cul-de-sac, so we abut not only Mulberry Street, but we also abut Hopkins Hill. And within a quarter of a mile, there are 4 houses with chickens. We've had chickens roam into our neighborhood, and they're very smart. I'm an animal lover. They actually go home at a certain time. But I am commenting as a neighbor. We have a great relationship with our neighbor, but we have dealt with predators coming into the yard. They actually killed one of the chickens, pulling them through the fencing. And we dealt with a very bad fly problem. We have to hang massive fly bags from Tractor Supply on our property line to deal with the fly issue that we've had. And our neighbors have a very upscale condo complex for their chickens. So we become, we are friends with neighbors. And, I have an issue with lowering the acreage because not everybody is going to be as conscientious as our neighbor has been about this. And like I said, the only problem we've dealt with, which was unfortunate, is the flies. I guess they come because of the chicken crap. So this is something that people are going to have to deal with, and it really should be on the onus of the property owner to deal with the fly problem. So, but this is how we handle it in our yard. But I'm really not for lowering the acreage. And can somebody tell me what the acreage being suggested is?
Right now, what we did was no more than 4 hens and or rabbits can be kept on any property. And then we increased the number of hens. No more than 8 hens or rabbits can be kept on a lot size of 25,000 to 39,999 square feet. So a typical acre is 43,000. So we're talking about a half acre to almost an acre would get 8 hens. So any lot, any size would get 4.
So, I can say what happens currently with the neighbors that have chickens that are less than a half of an acre right now. They still have them. So if nothing is going to be done about enforcement, you lower that down to a half, you're going to get people on a 1/10 of an acre. We are actually on a 0.17 here. I'm not even on a 1/5 of an acre up here in Cadbury Place. So I'm just concerned about people, who are already abusing the less than 3 acre situation, and it'll be lowered down to a half an acre. You're going to have people on a 1/4 acre going to try and do poultry on their property. So I'm concerned about property values as well.
This is any size. According to this is up to 4 on any size. So up to a 1/4 acre could have 4. So we did this, as Rocky said, we had people questioning, wanting us to reduce it. It doesn't have to be done. This is why it's at a public hearing, to see what the comments are. Prospect changed theirs, and theirs, I looked up 2 hens on less than a half acre. So theirs was half of the amount of chickens on a half acre. And then they go 4 hens from 1/2 acre to an acre, but it's still small. 2 hens on less than, so they're also on any size.
I think what you're trying to state is no matter what we set, people are going to abuse it. And quite honestly, it's the regulation now as it stands. Probably 95% of the people who have chickens are in violation because most people in this town don't have 3 acres of land.
Right.
It will be to enforce it will take a Herculean effort, in my opinion.
I know, and that's one of my concerns as well. If you are currently not doing it, what's going to happen when, 150 other people have, chickens? So,
Well, I would like to say this, it's not that we're not doing it, but the basic response we get from most people is, because I deal with it all the time. I probably deal with chicken calls several times a week, and my two people in my office will know that. It's very rare that someone will say to me, I want them gone from that property. What they'll ask is, I just want them to clean it up a bit and get rid of the rooster. They're like, I don't care if they have a chicken or a couple of chickens. I just don't want the rooster making noise, and I want them to clean it up a little bit more. But so I guess we can get hard lined on it and just simply say, that's it. We're going to get rid of all chickens in this town. And it will take a huge effort to the point where I think we'll have to hire a person just to do chickens and other livestock animals, because it's going to happen. It might be the same case with rabbits. It might have, because I've been to places where there were rabbits running free, and there are, how many times do I come back where I've been to a property and I'll say, they got chickens too. I don't know the answer right now. I really don't.
We could possibly go up to,
And
down
you're-
from 3 to 1 acre or something. We're just looking to find, if we do change it at all, a happy medium.
You're a resident who says you have chickens next door to you. Do you want, is that your goal, to get rid of the chickens and go out there and say then you have to get rid of the chickens?
no, I am saying more that from an educational standpoint, this is what people will be dealing with. I mean, we did have the fly problem. We also had a rooster that our neighbors had 2 roosters. They're not at the same time, because when you get a batch of chicks, I didn't even know this. You don't know what sex they are. So you can't say, I don't want roosters. You get 5 chicks, you could have a rooster in that. And then the rooster starts, we've had the rooster starting at 4 o'clock in the morning. I spoke to them personally because we have a great relationship, promised to get rid of it. It went on for weeks and weeks and weeks. Called them up and said, you've got to get rid of this rooster today. We can't take it anymore. And everybody's very pleasant. That woman who mentioned in her email before, we are a very nice community, and it's a very difficult situation to create a bad neighbor situation over, but this rooster was brutal. And the next one was even more obnoxious. So you'll be getting more and more calls.
No, I agree. They take away the rooster part, because that's something that is obviously more offensive to people. It's the fact that if they didn't have a rooster, how would you're the perfect example of someone that calls in. How would
I'm telling you right now, they're cute. They're adorable. They come over, they rake the leaves with their feet, we've had some beautiful chickens that have come into our property from Mulberry, cut through the woods and wound up in one of our houses here on Cadbury up at the top of the cul-de-sac. I mean, they're adorable. I'm just saying you're gonna have a lot of people dealing with roosters coming up because of the chicks. I'm just trying to be educational about how we deal with it. We do not have a smell, but we have the flies. We have the fly issue, so.
Which I understand, and most of the people I talk to who have chickens have no idea there's a limit to size of land.
Right, I'm sure.
So the problem's not going to go away. It's not going to get worse. The fact of the matter is that if we do, I think at some point 3 acres is too large, because we just don't have that many areas that have 3 acres of land. And quite honestly, your neighborhood is a small area of property. They should not be able to just wander wherever they want, the chickens, and perhaps that's where we have to decide on what's the right amount. AJ, you have a large piece of land. Could you have chickens on that are scooped up? You probably have more than an acre. Now, I have just over an acre. I would think that I could have chickens on mine. And
if I wasn't a part of this commission, I didn't know that there was a 3-acre limit.
Right, and I'm just running into that all the time. And of course, when you go knock on a door, no one ever knows they're doing something against an ordinance or against a regulation. I've never found someone that said, oh yeah, you finally caught me. No, it just doesn't happen that way. And I'm not saying it to be a joke, it's just the way that it is. But chickens stuff has come up a lot more than it's ever been. And it's hard, like they said, you can't buy just one. Tractor Supply, you gotta buy, what is it, 5 at a time?
Okay, thank you.
So, I mean, there's some areas where you're, Tommy's house, I've seen your house. You can have chickens hidden away in your yard, no one would know.
No.
But you don't have a large yard.
So over an acre.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, you got a big, no. But it's just the way it is. So I still think there's a need to address it. To blanketly say we're gonna leave it at 3 acres is gonna be difficult. And then.
I do understand. I just think our neighbors are a perfect example of someone building a very upscale chicken coop. I don't think you're gonna get that for 90% of the people. And I know a lot of you folks know Cadbury Place, we are basically one house after another, after another, after another. Sometimes there's just 10 feet between us looking into our neighbor's window here. We might each have 2 over an acre, but we literally are 10 feet from the neighbor's property line. So we're gonna see, we could have, 12 houses in a row here with chicken coops in the backyard. That's more what I'm not for.
There it depends upon how big your property is. And up in Cadbury Place, I think it could be an issue that we may have to consider those type of lots. And
there's a lot of neighborhoods like that. Simsbury's
Well,
the same
how
way.
big is your property?
We're 0.17, we're 100 and we're 100.
Right, and I think that would be a place where we wouldn't necessarily allow it.
So maybe setting a baseline, I mean, like instead of having, any size property, so I'm making this up right now, but
Right.
saying that, you must have at least 1/4 acre to have 2 chickens from a quarter.
Or a
to
half an
Well, that's
acre.
what we have in here, the second
Right.
page.
I thought you said that any size property.
Okay, yeah,
had
so no, we
chickens.
do have
That
it.
came from
We
New
could
Haven.
take that
New
out.
Haven has that.
Okay.
We were just looking at all the other towns and what they had, and I compiled it, and then I put, no backyard poultry may be kept inside any structure used for residential purposes, so we do address that in here. Because we don't want the poultry inside. We also say that it can't be
How do we
over
regulate?
directly over your
That goes back
wells
to
or
what we
your
were discussing
septic
before.
systems. So I just went out and looked at everybody's
Mhm.
and tried to put it together.
Mhm.
Based on that, for us to then work with this, take out things, add things, but it was something to work with.
Yeah.
I could look through here and I could take out that it starts at a 1/4 acre,
Well, maybe a 1/4 acre is too small.
or it could start at an acre. The problem is Ed goes out when he gets the calls, if somebody doesn't complain, he doesn't know somebody has chickens.
Mm.
He can't drive the neighborhoods every day looking for chickens, and some you don't even know, you can't see. So when he gets a call from a neighbor, then he goes out and he inspects to see what's going on, to see if there's roosters, to see where it's kept, what condition, and he kind of deals with it that way.
Well, and we've had that conversation multiple times about that the roosters seem to be the biggest problem. And chickens never get a problem till the neighbors don't get along.
Right.
I have that right now on Cherry Street. The chickens have been there for a long time, I'm finding out. And all of a sudden, the neighbors are fighting about something else, so the other one turned in about the chickens and wants their chickens gone.
Mhm. Yeah,
So,
it's difficult. It was a difficult conversation about the rooster because all the neighbors would complain, but nobody wanted to say anything because they didn't want to be a bad neighbor. So
Right.
it was a catch-22, really was. So I'm just saying that the situation is going to come up because you don't know what kind of chickens you get when they're born. You can't tell if they're male or female until they start growing. So
But truthfully, even if we do modify these regulations, not everybody runs out and gets chickens then, because not everybody wants chickens.
well, and
They might just start calling in. What we wanted people to do is call us and we can explain the regulation to them, and that will eliminate some of the people buying the chickens.
well, and I disagree with that because I believe the majority of people don't even think there's a regulation.
Hmm.
Nobody calls up and says, hey, can I have chickens?
right, they just do it. They just go get them.
I don't think there's gonna be a major sudden uptick
In
in
chicken,
chicken buying.
I
just
don't
because
think
we
so
changed
either.
the regulation.
No, I don't.
The people who want them already have them.
Mhm.
And they get them anyway.
All
But
right,
I
so what do we want to do?
A smaller property.
We have
Adjourn.
somebody else who wants a question.
there's one other person.
Going on for an hour for about these chickens.
I have one other.
There's one other person who wants to
Let's get
speak.
on.
Thank you, Diane.
Jeez.
Stefana, Stefania?
Hello, can you
Hi.
hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, how are you? I just want to chime in a little bit
Can we
about the
get your name and
chickens.
address first, please?
My name is Stefania Kinzig. I'm at 495 Cherry Street Extension in Naugatuck. I am currently a chicken owner. And I just gotta say, this whole livestock thing kind of irritates me a little bit, but I get it. In our house, we consider our chickens our pets. They're not considered livestock to us. And I'm kind of curious as to why you picked the amount of chickens that any given person can have. Because technically, if they stay in their coop, you only need 3 to 5 square feet per chicken. So on this 1/4 acre land that you guys are talking about, you don't need that big of an area to have chickens. So to extend it to the 3 acres, the 5 acres, I think that's a little ridiculous to do.
Well, it's not only about the size, it's if they bring rats occasionally, and that's where we're having a problem too. The neighbors will call in and say they have rats due to.
Yeah, but you can get rats from garbage cans as well. It's not always the chickens. Chickens aren't dirty animals. They're actually very clean animals. They actually spend most of their day cleaning themselves. So it's the people that don't clean up the feces that makes it dirty.
We understand. So the things, it was 3 acres. It currently is 3 acres. We were looking to reduce that.
And I agree. I think it should be reduced. Because 3 acres is a lot of land. A lot of people don't have 3 acres.
Right, so I have to admit, you were the first one who actually spoke on for reducing it.
Well, and to be honest, I did go out to Ms. Kinzig's property because a complaint came in. One of the things, you know, you can state what I said to you. I said, I'm not against chickens, but there are certain regulations. You were not aware of the regulations, correct?
Correct. And honestly, and I actually can say I have a rooster. I actually have 2 roosters.
Which I told you more than likely you'd have to get rid of.
Yes.
Those are not allowed. Those are not allowed in the current regulations or in if we modify them and reduce the acreage. Roosters are still not allowed.
Now,
but like the other lady said, when you go and buy them, you don't know if you're getting a hen or a rooster. You gotta wait till they grow up to figure out what you have.
Unfortunately, that's not something that we can just say.
Exactly, and that's why I have roosters.
So with that being said, I have been there. I saw from a distance, she is a person that does take care of her chickens. I can honestly say that. She does not do things, you know, they looked fine back there.
Yep, and I don't keep them to slaughter them like that guy in the email said. They are pets to us. Yes, they give us eggs, which is good, especially the economy is. At least I know we're not going to starve. But they're pets to us, you know? And I think you should lower the acreage for it.
So I will say that, you know, there are people that do maintain their areas. You're gonna get people who don't either. And there are people who just let their chickens run free. That's the risk that they take.
I'll admit we have chickens in my neighborhood. I don't even know whose they are.
I got chickens
Because
next
they're
door.
running around. I have no idea whose chickens they are. But they don't bother me.
You are against being,
Okay, so you are in favor
Yep.
reducing the acreage. We just have to figure out a happy medium.
And where did you get the amount that someone can have from?
Different towns. We looked
Other
at
town
the-
regulations,
Okay.
other towns.
Okay, because the old wives' tale, an old wives' tale is you should technically have 2 eggs per day per person in your house.
So our current regulations of 3 acres still only allows for 5 chickens
Okay.
max.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Looks like we're good.
No,
So
so
we'll
So
continue.
what do you, just continue it to the next meeting? I mean, but how do we want to narrow it down and let's get this thing done? Let's get it off the
Yeah.
table. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
you know.
we've been spending a lot of time on this and I appreciate all the work that you've put into it. But, you know, the comments that we have been very negative. We've had one person in the whole time we've had this public hearing open in favor of it. And I'm not sure, you know, that the fact that people have them in, you know, R8, less than an acre pieces of property, if that, we'll just give in. We'll just, you know, if that many people are having it in smaller lots, we should just let them do that. I'm not, especially when we're hearing the negative side of the things that people don't want. You know, we've heard more negatives about them than positives. This was the first one. So I'm not sure, you know, how much longer we should go on. And what is the idea? That we're just gonna do it because people have them? We haven't even had a lot of people, only one person to even say they have them, want them, need them, use them, you know, whatever, only one person. So when this came to us, it was because there, you know, Rocky was getting questions from people in town of wanting to have chickens. So I was excited to hear, well, maybe not excited, but I was wanting to hear from people about chickens. I really had no history, no background. So I was looking forward to having people talk about the chickens and what it's like and go from there. But we had no one except this one person this time even, you know, come for it. So I'm not sure, even though you've done a ton of work on it, if we should do anything. You know, it came on the premise that people out there want this. Yet we haven't had the people that want this. We've had the people not happy about it. So if we voted today, I would.
Did
vote
you want
against
to,
it.
we have one other person, Diane would like to speak again. Diane, if you could say your name and address again.
30 Cadbury Place at Naugatuck. I just wanted to add to your comment, what you were saying. I think the reason why a lot of people don't come out is they don't want to out themselves because they're already on under 3 acres. And some of them are on smaller properties than that. I think the woman down the street that has them is on a very short property. So, you know, I just think people don't want to out themselves. That's the reason why you don't hear from them, to be honest with you. Would you come out if you knew you were in violation already and say, well, I have 8 chickens on a 1/4 acre of property, you know? So that's part of the problem, is the number that they have as well as the size of their property. So, but I just wanted to repeat that I came on to basically say, these were the things we are personally dealing with as a property owner regarding the chickens. And we are very small lots up here. Thank you.
Yeah, what do you think?
Just what she said. I wouldn't come forward either and say, I got 10 chickens and I say, let them have chickens, let them eat chicken.
Let them eat eggs.
Yeah.
What about you, Angie?
The only thing I would have would be for Rocky. Rocky was the one that brought this forward. He said he's had several people ask for it. Is there, I'm using the word petition, it might be the wrong word. Is there anything in writing that the board can see that?
Could we permit it?
That people can, you know, so we can actually identify individuals who, you know, to Eileen's point, no one has come before the board to say, yes, I want to have chickens. They've all said no. Rocky is being an advocate right now, and obviously we all, you know, Rocky's trustworthy. We know people have come to him. So the question becomes, why aren't they coming here? And is there something Rocky can do to present that? Because if he can't, then it becomes an issue of that we've got nothing to build this on.
Yeah, and I think when we first started it, there were people there, but with COVID and so forth, no one's coming.
Historically, it's always been hard to get people to come out who are for something. You know, and people always come out when they're against something.
Can I make a comment? I'd be glad to get to the people that make comments to me that are in favor of this. But again, as was said tonight, I know some of them are not meeting the regulations and have chickens, and I certainly am not going to give their name. I wouldn't do that. So, you know, if they want to come forward, I'll urge them to, but I certainly understand why they wouldn't.
They wouldn't have to say that they
They wouldn't
have
have to say-
chickens, just simply say if they're, for or against it.
Yeah.
That's all we're looking for. We're not looking for them to out themselves, but just say, I am Joe Smith and I am for chickens.
Understood.
And at least we've got something, because to Eileen's point,
Or their positive experience
that's.
of.
Well, how many negative comments have you had?
10 to 12, yeah,
Everybody except Stefania.
over the past couple of months.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
very negative.
Understood.
And like you said, that, most people don't even know the regulations, so I'm not sure people are really afraid about, oh, I know the regulations and I've got too many. I think it's more people, this is what I want, this is what I do, and, oh, I didn't know there were regulations.
Right, and there are people who don't know they need a fence permit. There are people who
Right.
don't, they don't think they need a shed permit. They don't think they need a pool permit. They don't think. So it goes without saying, but chickens, they see them for sale at a store, so therefore, oh. I can go do it.
I'll get the word out. We'll see what happens. So,
And he's not gonna drive by every house that just spoke tonight and look to see what's in their yard. We don't have time to do that.
Nor are we
And
gonna
Jan-
go out and look for chickens.
Jan had said that at, I think, the last meeting or the meeting before that. I'll make sure I get people to you, because
Yeah.
I
Yeah, because
meant it.
he has chickens. He said.
Should we?
What about you, Tom? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm bored of letting them have chickens. I mean, I grew
So-
up with chickens.
All right.
If you keep it clean, there's,
Yeah.
there's nothing, I mean, I got pictures of myself.
Yeah.
The chickens are almost bigger than me. That's when I was a kid, not
Yeah.
that long.
Yeah.
Remember the
I
Murphys
grew
used
up
to
with
sell
animals.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
well,
So we want to just continue it to the next meeting and then,
well, it gives at least one more shot for people to
Alright.
make a comment.
all right, let's do that.
But I would just say one more time that, it was brought before us because people wanted it, and really what we've heard is a lot of negative, so.
So do
Well,
you
and I
want,
think next month, if there's real no,
Yeah.
then why would, we've given it enough shots.
Yeah.
do you want me to modify anything that's in the current ones? Look at Rocky's comments about the size,
Well, I just have one question, that why do we not do it by zone?
we could
Like
do it by
RA,
zone.
R
Because
15?
not every property is the same size in some zones. So obviously, when you run into an area like Cadbury Place, there was
That's a PDD 4.
that was a development, and you run into Indian Hills, a lot of the properties are same size generally.
Quinn Street, they're all the .10.
But we do have areas that are R15 that have R8 size properties. So if we
Yeah.
sat there and said, you have to be in R15 zone. Well, I'm in an R15, yeah, but your property is only 8,000 square feet. It's not big enough.
Okay.
Is what we run into it a lot with pools. Right now, that area is R15, yes. But today, if we went to build that, you couldn't do it. But you were there before. With the sizes.
Okay, well, then we'll wait till we pull the public hearing open, and then next month rather. And I can see what their comments are, and if I have to modify at that point,
Yeah.
if we come up with a happy medium, an acre, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, again, we haven't even had any comments like that.
Right, and that's the thing,
So
we're making
why would
up,
we worry about adjusting when we don't?
I don't
exactly,
know what
we're
size or what
making
to
up
adjust.
things based on information we're guessing.
So this did come up a couple years back before you were on the commission. Ricky was here, Neil was here, and we were looking to reduce the size, and we didn't get any response, and we just kept it the same.
So basically, so not a round robin situation here, where we're just basically regurgitating this stuff.
Okay, so just
So I'll
continue.
continue the public hearing for the livestock poultry regulations till 6:10 on December 15th. So old business, we're good. New business.
We don't have anything since,
We did that.
Chairman's report. Welcome aboard. Congratulations on everybody's.
What you could do is thank Wayne Balicki publicly.
Yeah, hey Wayne, thank you. Yeah.
4 years.
Yeah, Wayne, how long did he do it for?
4 years.
4 years,
4 years.
4 years. We want to thank you for your service and you did an outstanding job and look forward, I hope you look forward to your retirement. Congratulations to all the new commissioners and you got a great team here and looking forward to working with everybody and getting some things done for Norfolk. So. Any commissioners, anything else? Nothing. I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? All right.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
I will say this, if we do have inclement weather, we're going into December now.
Yeah.
And we may want to consider Zoom